brought to you by JEGS.
Hi, I'm Lisa Chissis. I'm the president and owner of Flex-a-lite. I'm going to show you how to install this fan radiator combination that we've developed for the GM applications. This will fit a range from 1999 up to 2012. We're actually going to put this one into a Tahoe, but as you can see, here's what it looks like when it comes out of the box from the factory. So we've got an all aluminum radiator with a dual electric fan that's already pre-mounted to the radiator for you, as well as all the other components we'll need for the installation, such as the variable speed controller right here, mounting brackets for the radiator, all the wiring and connections, as well as our breaker right here. Now this application has an automatic transmission, and there is not a cooler included in the side tank, so we also have an optional transmission oil cooler, which is a part number 4118 GMT, which has brackets specifically for this application. Now the part number for the radiator and fan combination is a 57291. You can also get just the radiator, which would be a 57001. Our first step is going to be to disconnect our battery. Make sure your engine is cool before you do that, and we also need to drain the radiator fluids. Now this application comes with a belt-driven fan. That fan assembly is going to be removed because we no longer need it. We're going to take this cover off. It's held together by 7 of these pop rivets here, so I'm going to go ahead and get the last one done. Just use a flathead screwdriver to get this out. And once you've got all your pop rivets removed, then this cover piece can come out. We're going to remove the air intake assembly. There's a bolt here that I need to loosen, as well as a bracket here. There's another bolt here. Got to disconnect the wires here, and then there's also an attachment down here so the whole thing can come out.
Yep, go ahead.
We're going to remove this fan shroud assembly here, but before we can do that, we have to disconnect a couple of the hoses. So this is just a ventilation hose that's snapped in right here. I also got to take out the top radiator hose here, and I'll secure it up there so we don't leak. So to remove this fan shroud right here, I've got 2 pop rivets on either side, as well as a bolt here. So all those are going to get taken out so we can lift this up.
Okay, let's do that.
So I'm going to remove the top of this fan shroud, but I need to make sure I save this clip because we're going to use it later on after we install the Flex-a-lite fan assembly with radiator. Now to get this back out, I'm just going to use a pair of pliers and kind of squeeze it to work it out. We need to remove this clutch fan assembly, and let me warn you, this is going to be the most frustrating part of the entire installation. Here's why. We need to support the pulley right here. There are a couple of holes that you can use to do that. We've made our own tool to do that. You can see how these 2 are set up here. GM also offers a tool that you can buy. So we'll secure the pulley with that bracket, and then we're going to use a big old wrench to get down onto this nut, and that's what we're going to have to loosen up by going counterclockwise. Okay, so here's our clutch and fan assembly. This is no longer going to be needed, which should give us some more horsepower and additional torque. Okay, so I'm going to take out the bottom fan shroud assembly, and this is no longer going to be needed either. Now we need to disconnect the rest of these hoses from the radiator here. You can see I've got a ventilation hose that's just going to come off of here. I've got a overflow tank hose that's going to come out of here, and then I've got the 2 transmission lines that need to come off. This is a little tricky, so you back off this clip here, and then there's actually a C-clip that I'm going to use a pick to get at so that I can take off this C-clamp evenly. And once it comes out, the transmission hose will come off on its own. So once I've removed the C-clip, the transmission line is going to come out, but you're going to want to plug this up because it is going to leak transmission fluid down below. I'm also going to want to use some rags or plug on the radiator as well because it's going to leak onto the engine if we don't later on. Okay, we're going to remove the radiator. It's actually being held by 2 bolts up here, but there are 4 bushings that we're going to keep for our installation. There's 2 rubber bushings down here, as well as the 2 rubber bushings on here that we'll take off once we get the radiator out. So this is the GM radiator that we've taken out. You can see that it is a single row and it has a nylon tank over here versus the 2-row all aluminum radiator that we're going to replace it with. Okay. In order to get these lower bushings off, there is a tab in here that we need to compress down so that it will pull off. Okay. The top bushings are pretty simple to get out. We're just going to compress it and squeeze it back out. Okay. Now we're going to put these bushings back into the holes, but we are going to do it a little differently than the way it came out. So on this side, we're going to keep the stock hole on the passenger side, but over here on the other side, you'll see that there's 2 holes. This is what came out. We're actually going to use the inside hole for the bushing here. Now the radiator is going to sit up against this bolt here, but we're going to cover up this bolt with this bushing. Now you may have a couple of those, and these are provided in your kit. You're going to want to have a friend help you drop this radiator fan combination in, and once you get it placed, you need to make sure it's positioned properly on those bushings. There's spots for it. Once you get it in there, it is going to pull all the way back like that. Now we're attaching the brackets for the radiator. There are 2 different brackets. This is the passenger side bracket, and this is going to be your driver's side bracket. It's got a larger circle here for the radiator inlet. I did reinstall the bushings, you can see up here. And then I'm using the T-bolts to go down into the channels of our Flex-a-fit side tank design here. See how I'm using the T-bolt in this channel here, and then I've gone in one further on the bottom to use that channel for the T-bolt there. So the nice thing about this system is that it allows you to adjust for positioning. So once I get this final bolt in here, I can then leave it loose until I've finished both sides and then tighten everything up. Now that we have the fan and radiator securely in place, we can reattach some of our hoses. So we've got the lower radiator outlet hose to attach right here. We've got our overflow tank that's going to come up here. And of course our ventilation tube that's going onto this connection right here. So once we get those in place, we're going to work on splicing into our transmission lines so we can install the auxiliary oil cooler. Next thing we're going to do is reinstall the upper radiator hose, and we do have a bracket to secure it with. So this is in your kit. The short side is going to go up against this nutsert so we can bolt it down. We're going to take off this grill. It's secured by a bolt right here, as well as these kind of little turnkey things you got going on here. So if you take a Phillips and you turn it counterclockwise about 45 degrees, you can see that it will unlock so that that grill can come out. Once all those are loosened, there are a couple of tabs that are holding it on either side here. Those are just going to be pulled away. Okay, now we're going to take off the original cooler that came with it. There's 4 bolts right here, but first we're going to disconnect the lines here. You pull down, and this has that same pick clip combination down here to get these C-clips off in here. This is going to be messy, so make sure that you have something underneath so that the transmission fluid isn't going to stain your floor. Okay, so I'm down to my last bolt that's going to come off here, and there is a temperature sensing unit. This can vary from one application to the other, but if you do see this, we are going to reattach it to the bracket on our next oil cooler assembly. So to mount the oil cooler, we're going to use the factory bolts down here, and those line up to some holes that are already in here. The top holes we are going to have to drill into here and put in some self-tapping screws that are supplied with the kit. In order to make sure I'm in the center of this slot, I've used the scribe right here to exit off, and then I've used a punch to make sure that my drill is going to get started properly. So I'm going to start out with a small drill bit so I can make sure that I'm going to get this in there straight when I go to the larger size for the actual screw. See how it travels. Now that we got the pilot hole started, I've got a 7/32 bit that I'm going to go ahead and drill with. Fortunately, there is a back side to this bar, so I shouldn't poke through and hurt the condenser. Now we're going to splice into the original oil cooler lines. You can see there's a segment right here that we can cut into. You've got a couple of these fittings that are included in your kit. I'm going to take the larger size of that and put it into the OE hose, and then I can join it to the transmission hose that's included in your kit so we can come back around up into the front here. This is Flex-a-lite's variable speed controller, and here's how it works. You've got a thermostat that you can set in here between 160 and 240 degrees. That's going to be actuated by this probe here that we're going to put into the radiator fins. Then I've got terminals to hook up to the battery here, as well as the motor leads onto the fan over here. And then I've got options here for the probe in 10 and 11. The number 9 terminal is going to be used for your 12-volt source. And then 7 and 8 is going to be used for the air conditioning lead, if you have air conditioning. And 5 and 6 can be used for cockpit control or a kill switch if you want to. So the way this system works is it'll turn the fan on at 60%, and then it will keep kicking the fan up to 100% only if it needs to. Now there is a built-in delay, so you can get your car started first before it draws any amp to the fan. That's 5 seconds. And then if the vehicle is still warm when you turn it off, it'll continue to operate the fan for 30 seconds even after you've turned the ignition off.
Brought to you by JEGS. Lifetime support. Complete customer satisfaction. Delivering performance since 1960. JEGS.com.